The Baton Rouge Update segment has all the smoke. We'll talk about the film industry and equity and politics and the way governments treat our systems. But we'll begin with the Chief Judge, who's here to talk about a court you'll need. Roll it, Kyle. As you know, the conversation about violence, particularly gun violence in our communities, is all too reactionary, and it focuses way more on the problems than maybe solutions. Well, let's talk about some potential solutions that target the egregious nature of gun violence and protects the people who are mostly victims to that violence. Chief Judge Don Johnson is here with me with the 19th JDC, one of my dear friends. How are you, sir? Happy New Year.
Yes, I realize we're only, 17, 18 days
into the year, right.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So, a gun violence court. Now, I love the concept of this. This is East Baton Rouge Parish taking ownership of an issue that we cannot pretend is not a problem.
Yes.
And putting together a way to address it. Let's talk about the genesis of this and what you believe its outcome will be for our community.
I have thought about it, and a year ago I first announced the concept of a gun violence court. But when we started this year with the death rate, the first 4 days, and then about 10 shootings around the 7th, 8th day of the year, we've got to take ownership of what's going on with gun violence. Now, and the way we take ownership of that is to recognize that it is a public safety, public health issue. So what I'm proposing is that the courts become first responders also, that we get in front of the solution. And by that I mean this: we should have dedicated judges and courts ready to manage quickly gun violence type cases. So what I'm recommending is we ask the governor, who's calling a special session, and asking us to give him recommendations, that we go in with a plan. East Baton Rouge lead the state and go in with a gun violence pilot court and ask the governor to ask the legislature to fund it, and let's measure it and look at the outcomes in a year.
What are some of the things that will happen, in this court in terms of, because I know there's been a backup, the courts have been backed up for myriad reasons, and this would kind of target just that. Tell me what that looks like.
It looks like this. We want to fully fund the prosecution team, the investigative team, and the Department of Public Safety that does the technical research on the data and the information. But we also need to fully fund the public defender, because we want to make sure due process is there for those who are accused. But we want a judge readily available to try those cases and not delay the time resolution a year out or 2 years or 3 years from the date of the event. We've got to close that gap. The resolution of gun violence should be quick and fast on the issues that are germane to safety. So I'm proposing we recognize that. Let's get a judge ready to try those cases quickly. Let's get the prosecutor ready to prosecute and defense ready to defend. So it's a way of getting the court involved.
It has been proven that in communities where the judiciary, law enforcement, all the community are in lockstep about addressing gun violence, that you see a reduction both by getting the bad actors off the street, but also by setting the precedent to someone who would become a bad actor that this may not be the choice you want to make.
Yes, you've got to send a message. The message is important. We observe what we see and we feel that. So the message is important. We've got to be tough on gun violence. We've got to identify the type of gun violence that's plaguing our community. And that's the punishment side. We've got to equally focus on prevention, but let's get our crime resolution piece together. Let's get a solid plan, and then let's get it funded. I think if we do that, and I'll say this, that a lot of this gun violence is a lot of young black men.
That's right.
All right, so recognizing that that's a trend, let's be honest about that, and let's go to that concept of dealing with that, with us who are committing those crimes.
I never understand the hesitance to address it And I mean, I am a big believer in investment to hopefully convert some of these young men back to productivity, and also to keep some of them from choosing to be a bad actor. However, when you are hell bent on shooting and killing, there's a place for you.
Yeah. And that's that you're open and honest about what you're observing. Others are more trepid about it or less vocal about it. But I recognize that as a leader in the community, we need to address problems that are plaguing our community and that are scaring us out of a normal way of behavior. So let's be honest about it and let's deal with it directly.
In the last 90 seconds, what's the work nexus between the court, city officials, and law enforcement to make this happen?
What I've asked the council to do is to agree to a resolution that we would put together from the law enforcement team, from the defense bar, from the courts, and those that are involved in this, even the victim families. And let's go and get a solution that will fund and that will say to those that are committing the offenses, you're not going to get away with this conduct. We're going to hold you responsible. If you want to do different in your life, then let's choose that and we'll help you. But those that are not going to do that, we need to deal with it.
Those two kids, the pictures of those two children on the set behind me are both victims of gun violence. A young woman on her way home from meeting with friends, and a 3-year-old lying in the bed next to his 1-year-old sister takes a bullet in the head. There are families all over this city that want justice for their loved ones. I do believe in trying to rehabilitate and save the kids who are in trouble, but the victims deserve some attention too.
We are going to address that. We're not going to sit back and wait on another event to happen, and then we're not prepared to deal with the outcome. So that's what I'm proposing. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to let this community know about it.
Why don't you come do my audio podcast next week?
I certainly will, but I'm not a podcast person, but I will be on it if you ask.
We'll make it work for you. All right, the Baton Rouge Update segment with Myra is up next.